Hi everyone. So I'm really happy to have Rachna Jain with us today again. Rachna, as you know, is a health coach, and she has done a lot of work, and she has a lot of experience in dealing with hypothyroidism. Today, Rachna is going to talk to us about some myths that are related to weight loss, and also give us some tips on how to actually lose weight. So very welcome, Rachna, once again. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Jagjit, and thanks for inviting me again. I'm glad to be talking. So,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, do you want me
So
to introduce the topic for today, or you're going to do that?
yes, let's do that. Why don't you start with we often see there's so much information out there. A lot of people talking about, how to lose weight, and of course, not all of those things work for everybody. And of course, there's a lot of misinformation. Means there's so many myths out there. So yeah, let's talk about them. Tell us about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about it more in eyes from the hormonal disturbance, because that is one of the major cause of obesity these days, and that's why things don't work exactly the they work like they're supposed to work.
Yeah.
So one of the common things that we see people when they start or embark on their weight loss journey is to cut down the calories. Okay. They'll count calories and painlessly doing all those calculations. And in their mind, what they're thinking is calories in minus calories out is the fat, um, is the body fat gain. And that is not at all true. Okay.
Yeah.
And there has been survey by National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey conducted over 10 years, 1990 to 2000, and they find a correlation, but they found when they break down the data, they did not find any link between the increased calories and the weight gain over 10 years. So, of course, when we are talking about weight loss, when you're talking about short-term weight loss, calorie reduction does work a little, but our body has a set weight, and it is determined by our hormones. And particularly when we talk about weight gain, your insulin, which is a fat regulator, that is the key hormone responsible. So, so basically, when you reduce the calories, your calories out also reduce proportionately,
Yeah.
and your metabolism also changes. Our bodies is super smart. Okay, so everything is dependent. So we can't look at one thing in isolation.
Yeah.
So definitely, this is one of the things that people miss the most is our fat stores also are essentially regulated by again insulin and glycogen and also other hormones, which also affect our satiation or our hunger.
Yeah.
So that basically determines at the end what is going to be used for heating, generating heat in our body, or storing the fat. So definitely long-term weight gain is not associated by the calorie reduction.
Okay. Very, very interesting. Thank you.
So yeah, so that's one of the myths. The second one I would say is, sorry, did you have any questions?
No, I think that's really interesting. Even to have that concept kind of clarified. So yeah, no, that's good. So yeah, I think we're good to move on to the next one.
Great. So the second one is, I would call it as an exercise myth. And this is what again, the common sense says that if you exercise more, you can lose more weight. And yes, for the short term, that may help. And I don't deny the benefits of exercise. Exercise is great. Movement is great for overall feeling good, overall feeling more in control of bodies. And that is, but that is in no way effectively, especially I have seen people, women particularly, who are exercising a lot more. And they say that, my weight reduced a pound or so, and then it stabilized. It
Okay, yeah.
doesn't really do anything. And one of the things to remember is, again, your overall stress, your overall cortisol, and how we eat, like, all affects our weight gain. So typically when we exercise more, we also tend to eat more. And if our, like I said, like insulin is our fat storage hormone, and typically if your body spends more time in this high insulin regime, and ultimately that's what people say, that when they exercise more, they will eat more, they will feel great. That's a different. So yeah, so that's one of the things that at least I know it's pretty much true. My personal experience, I would say, I ran a marathon in 2013, and I ended up gaining 5 pounds. And that was not all. There was, I mean, it was not muscle waste, because I could see my pants were getting tighter, everything. Yeah. I was feeling super fit. So there was nothing related. So I would definitely say that exercising, of course, the type of exercise does matter. Like if you do a lot of cardio, you tend to eat much more. But if you do weight strengthening, that time your metabolism changes. Okay. That is particularly better for the weight loss. Yeah. Not so much the cardio, but cardio gives you more kind of high. You feel much better. That's what's called the adrenaline high and the runner's high.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. You know, of course, we often talk about the role of the food we are eating. So I think it cannot be just one, right? So you can't, especially if people, you know, are looking at losing weight. So not only just exercising, but, you know, eating the right foods. I'm sure there's other stuff, like it's a combination of things, right? And then some foods work for some people, they don't work for other people. And then there's some exercise that would work for one people and definitely not for other. For example, I have never been able to exercise a lot. I've always hated the idea. So since when I was very young, I was very lean, very, you know, very skinny, I would say, and I never had to do any exercise. But then with age, you know, you end up thinking, okay, now I am actually putting on weight, which means I need to do something. However, I always noticed that when I'm eating healthier, and sometimes I don't fast. We discussed fasting topic last time. I don't fast as much when I'm eating healthier, and I'm finishing, like, you know, I make sure that I don't eat after a certain time, whether it's like 7, 8 p.m. And when I'm doing that, I see my weight drop. And this hadn't happened for the longest time. And I was going to the gym and everything. But, you know, just you know, for me, eating healthier worked more than just going to the gym or working out every day. So yeah, that's certainly, you know, really, really true the way you explained it. So yeah, really interesting to know. Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, thanks for sharing that, because I think that's also, I mean, I would say my experience is, for me, like, I have a tendency of gaining weight because I have hypothyroidism.
Yeah.
But what I have seen is if I'm mindful about my eating habits, I know what I'm eating exactly, I don't gain weight. But if I become mindless, I mean, exercise doesn't do anything to me, because obviously it's hormonal, like, and I mean, I feel great. I would always recommend everybody to exercise, because they gain that extra energy. But to lose the weight, it has, I mean, come down to your insulin resistance and all these concepts that are coming up now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so this actually going back to the calories, right? So like I said earlier, is that calorie reduction doesn't necessarily change your weight, in the sense like reduce your weight long term. And that same goes to the overfeeding. And that's not very intuitive, but it so happen is that when we overfeed, I'll give you actually an analogy before. Like, so suppose you are running an energy station or power point, and then you have like coal as the raw material, and you're getting every month like 100 tons of coal to burn, and then suddenly you get like 2,000 tons of coal. So what would be your strategy? You're going to initially have some storehouses where you are going to be able to store the coal. But after a while, like you don't have an unlimited amount of storehouses, so you will have to burn more energy, and you'll have to generate more power. That's exactly what's going on with our body. So when you are eating all of a sudden too much of food, and they have done like a systematic dietary studies on that, is that when your body gets a lot of calories, so it tends to store a little bit of weight. But over time, our hunger hormone, which is ghrelin, it basically it becomes more, our body reduces the production of it, so you won't feel as hungry. So you are or rather you're basically going to burn that energy. Like as you are eating more, you're going to burn more energy, and over time, like when when your things are getting stabilized, you are not gonna automatically, your body wants to go to its set weight. And that is something that people who studies obesity, they talk a lot about your body's set weight, which is a kind of a thermostat of your body. So if you are trying to reduce the make a stable body temperature, you rather set your body to a different temperature, and that's when everything becomes automatically adjusted. And same goes in our bodies, that we have a set weight that is determined by our hormone balance and whatnot. So if you do like calories and calorie in out is something like you add a heat source to change the temperature, right? So if your temperature, your thermostat is set at a lower temperature and you're feeling cold, what you're going to do is start burning, like say put on a space heater. What's going to happen? You will temporarily feel hot, but since your main thermostat is set at 0, your basically AC system will kick in or whatever, and then things become adjusting. So that's what's kind of happening with our body over time too, is that we tend to start feeling, going back to our own set weight, which is determined by our genetics as well as some of the hormonal changes that has happened over time. And we just tend to go back. So our body is pretty smart in that way.
Yeah, really interesting. Yes. Right.
I don't know how much it was clear. I think I was just trying to bring too many concepts together.
No. It was very clear and very, very interesting. Thank you so much. When you start thinking that way, being logical about things, it starts to make more sense. And then, I think the idea is to really think about what state of health you're in, what kind of balances, imbalances that are going on, and then putting all that together to work out a strategy that would work for you the best way.
Yeah, that's good. So we covered like calorie reduction, we covered like exercise, we covered calorie excess, which is, not for weight gain. It's for weight gain, not for weight loss, but it's kind of related. And the fourth one I often missed is like sleeping less means more activity, which means you can actually reduce your weight because you're being more active. And that's totally not true.
Okay.
So there have been on and off so many sleep studies done over and over again, is that when you sleep less, your like cortisol levels, which is your stress hormones, are higher. Like they can be 100% higher the next day. And even by the evening, like if you sleep like 4 hours a night, by evening also your cortisol levels are like 35% higher, 35 to 50% higher than your normal cortisol level. So what that means is our body especially has a relationship between cortisol and also insulin. Your body needs more insulin, rather more sugar, because you're sleep deprived, which means more insulin, which means more storage of fat. So people, especially in United States, like if you look at the statistics, we are like 35% sleep deprived. And that would mean increased chances, like 30% increased chances of obesity. And that's true, I'm pretty sure, even in European countries these days, it's pretty much everywhere. And actually, interestingly, like a few of my recent clients during the pandemic, everybody has this common thing, that they are sleep deprived. And that's the first thing like I am handing for them, because they should be sleeping 7 to 9 hours, especially when you are having a chronic health condition like hypothyroidism or more of Hashimoto's. Your body, or any autoimmune issues, your body wants to sleep more because it needs to have that energy. Like that's how our metabolism automatically gets set. But when we forces it to sleep less, it brings that imbalance of hormones and the cocktail of imbalances of hormone into your life, and you will have no energy, no tendency to lose weight, tend to gain weight. So
that's really interesting, because we hear this so much about good sleep, how it impacts our our health in general, even with hormonal imbalance, because the body isn't getting enough time to heal or reset, it's just not healthy overall. It causes different things, like I think it's a very, very common problem, even with my own personal experience. I've had times when I had no problem falling asleep, but I would just keep waking up in the middle of the night, and it causes you extra stress. And then, your hormonals are all over the place, insulin, everything. But it's really interesting to know for the weight loss point of view as well. So yeah, I think that's really, really interesting. So, the amount of things that depend on good sleep are so many. And yet, I think somehow there's a kind of a feeling around that if you don't need to sleep well, and just it's just like kind of become trendy kind of a thing, when especially in the corporate world, where people are thinking, oh yeah, work is like this, we're working so hard, like sleep is nothing, or who wants to sleep? But do you do realize with time that it is really, really important, and not just at a new for how your well-being in general, but like also so many, like you said, autoimmune disorders, for example, or various things, because if you're not allowing the body to heal and it take its time, then yeah, it definitely impacts overall how your mood is, how your stress levels are, and everything else.
Yep, it impacts everything, your productivity, and one of the things I noticed, right, if the new mom, like, I don't know if you know the statistics, but typically new moms, like within a year or two, many of them develop hypothyroidism, and that is totally due to the lack of sleep and the stress that they're seeing because of the baby being born. And then so I mean, it's not like, yeah, we do take care of the babies, and that's great, but that lack of sleep is doing a lot to our bodies as well. And that's when you need to not feel guilty about certain like self-care rituals, which helps you tremendously in overcoming all these shortcomings in your life, and possibly help with the weight loss.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, on to the next one.
Okay, so the next one is that this has a little bit controversial, and I feel that it is all personal preference as well. That especially snacking will not make you think, or eating at regular interval does not make it think. And especially if you think about it, if insulin is one of the prime component of storing fat, and I mean insulin doesn't work in isolation. There are other things also involved, so I won't generally pinpoint that, but at least in terms of the biochemistry, when your body is going to spend more time in higher insulin levels, you are going to tend to store more weight. And when does this happen is that if you keep eating at regular interval, your insulin is on an average higher, because you're gonna every food is not in isolation. Like you're typically eating a combination of fat, protein, and sugar, and carbohydrates. So that itself will basically increase your insulin level. In the common sense is that insulin is more related to sugar, like carbohydrates digestion, but even protein, like any food, can increase your insulin level. So even foods high in animal protein, or even whey protein, or milk, etc., it will increase your insulin. Not equally, every food has like a glycemic index. It also has an insulin index, and those so many foods are higher in insulin. And if you eat and snacks tend to be particularly, I'm not even going there, the processing part of it, the most of the snacks are processed. So if you are actually snacking on something little bit um, every now and then your body tends to think that, oh, there's plenty of energy, and then it's going to start storing it away, and that kind of overall leads to weight gain as well.
Okay. So, yeah. So, a lot of people say, like, split your meals. So, snack, have like a little bit, but, like mind your portions, control your portions, but have multiple meals. But then what about healthy snacking? Does that apply to healthy snacking as well? So let's say we're not eating crisps or, chocolates or like in your breaks, but rather than like, something healthier, like, I don't know, carrots, or I don't know, some fruit in between. Would that still like kind of impact the insulin levels?
It will impact the insulin level, but it also there is, so insulin, I said, does not work in isolation. So you need to have like a satiating hormone, which is also called the leptin hormone. So if your snacks also curbs has a satiation factor, so that would help. So So if you are snacking and it's replacing your meal, right? So then definitely it is helping. But a lot of time we are adding on to our meals. Like we have this, most of us these days are not intuitive eaters. We basically just go by, okay, this is how much every day I eat, like two bread, for example. And then you just, mindlessly thinking you'll just eat two breads. It's not that you're feeling less hungry or more hungry.
Yeah.
And that's basically what is the problem with the snacking, is that people don't eat. Like I am a big proponent of eating when you feel hungry. So if you feel hungry, you need to probably snack. Your body is telling you something.
Okay.
But if you're just doing by the time, and again, there is a thin line. That's why I said, like, everybody has a different goal. Like, I am not much of a snacker. I would rather have, big meals. But I can see my kid who cannot eat one big meal, and he likes to snack. But then he also seemed to be responding a lot to sugars. Like his blood level gonna go up down a lot more, and his moods are less stable. Like, and I see that in his case. And typically snacking is, especially when we are not very well prepared, it is typically of higher processed food. And that is so that definitely, I mean, sometimes it's not easy to isolate those things.
Yeah.
But intuitive eating trumps everything, I would say.
Mm.
Like, intuitive eating is like, if you're feeling hungry, you probably should snack. And
Yeah.
then you should also replace those healthy snacks with, like, actual something unhealthy that you are if weight gain is your weight loss is one of your primary motive, then it's always good to replace it with some unhealthier replace it for something unhealthy that you might be eating later, like maybe a bread, like a piece of bread. So if you're eating carrots, but probably reduce wheat bread later in your main meal.
Okay. Okay. No, that's really, really interesting. Thank you so much, Rachna. And how about if you were to, tell us about tips for losing weight? What would be your tips?
So, tip for losing weight, I think my favorite one is sleeping and meditation. I think that is the number one,
Yeah.
because I feel most of us are lacking in both. Like, firstly, we are highly distracted, evolving to be a highly distracted species. So both bring kind of mindfulness and control in our body. So all these things, like, again, like when we are talking about short-term weight loss, right? So we do need to exert some control. I'm not a big proponent of doing that, but when you're looking at short-term, like, strategies work differently. For somebody who needs to have like a short-term results in order to actually commit long-term to some strategy, they want to actually focus on getting these short-term results fast, and then they get motivated and, oh yeah, now I can do this, now I can do that. So that's why I like to work on the energy first, and bringing this balance just through the sleep, because that is the easiest to do. And meditation comes a little differently for different people, but that also makes you being mindful of what you're eating. It just basically bring that focus to whatever you are doing, and eating exactly the same thing. When we are in tune with our hunger hormones, when the body is telling eat, then you eat. When the body is saying don't eat, then don't eat. But we have lost that connection somewhere in between. So that's why this is my number one. The number two is definitely be involved in cooking or preparing your own meals, because that's one of the best way that you can actually control your ingredients. And I'm not talking about like process, like I mean, it's very obvious when we are eating all these refined carbs, even refined protein, like highly processed protein, animal protein. All these are actually adding to our weight gain over time. So that is, you will be relying on all these junk food if we don't know how to learn how to cook. So the basic cooking skills everybody needs to know. That's, I think, one of the first thing that you can do to actually be healthy. And you don't have to cook all your meals. So, but then you should be prepared to experiment. And there are, I think you posted about those fresh, the box meals,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So I think that's great. That's actually one of the best way to start learning how to cook. And then you will start seeing the results, that you'll get more involved in the cooking, and you can always substitute the good stuff for the bad one.
Yeah, I think well, I had one of the with one of our other speakers, Rosie, who's a nutritionist, and we talked about it, and she explained how, when we are chopping and we are preparing like the food, the smells, they kind of increase our serotonin levels. It kind of it just kind of lifts up everything rather than just putting something in the microwave or in the oven to cook. Like rather than that, if you're preparing, it just has such a good impact overall on our health and just the well-being in general. So yeah, that's a really really good point that you make there.
Hmm. Yeah, and I believe in this food sadhana, like for a lack of better term, the basically it's like food meditation. So in olden days, like what I hear is that the grannies and everybody, they used to kind of caress the fruit and like really nicely clean it, and then they pass on those energy, the healing of whatever energy. I mean,
Yeah,
I totally believe in the transfer of energy.
yeah,
So all those things like rituals, actually grinding your own food like chutneys rather
yeah,
than using a blender to do that
yeah.
will have a different taste as well as different benefits. And it's also not, it's less processing. If you think about high speed blender, I mean, I do rely on smoothies at times because there is no way I can eat so much of fruits or healthy vegetables in one go.
Yeah,
But at the same time, we need to figure out that I mean, there is something going on energy wise in that very high speed blender, which
yeah,
is not the same as just eating the same like food, which is going
mhm,
to satiate you much more.
yeah,
That's why you can drink this whole big smoothie, but like you can't eat like 5 apples at the same time. You
yeah.
could, yeah, drink a smoothie of five
Absolutely,
apples. Um,
absolutely. Yeah, really really interesting.
yeah, so definitely that makes a big difference. And
Hmm.
um, there are other things that we can do is to include like your appetite surprising suppressant foods, such as like water is actually a big one, that actually suppresses. So anytime you feel hungry, sometimes it's just the need of hydration for your body.
Okay.
um, Green tea is another big one. Is it does I mean, it has good antioxidants, polyphenol and whatnot, plus it also suppresses your appetite by increasing the satiating, I think just ghrelin, the hunger hormone, it kind of decreases the secretion of that.
Good.
Then cinnamon is another one, I would say would help you with that. Uh, Coffee is kind of also an appetite suppressant, but we need to get. I mean, I am sometimes not a big fan of coffee because it depends what kind of coffee you're getting. If it's the regular, like 90% of the coffee that we get these days are kind of molded, so you need to go for a mold free coffee, and that has some of the people who are suffering from autoimmune issues, they actually like for example, we talked about sleep, right? They would sleep less and then eat drink caffeine just to cover up that symptom. So in that way, like coffee, even though it is a good appetite suppressant, and I think overall those who have a good relationship with caffeine, it is healthy for them.
Yeah.
But when you're using it just to abuse your like cover up your symptoms,
Yeah.
then it becomes not so healthy for you.
Mhm.
Then healthy fats actually are quite good, like chia seeds, and even nuts and other things. Nuts, I would say, sometimes can also be having, like especially the ones that are very protein rich, can also increase your insulin levels. But
Yeah.
overall, they have also a good satiation factor.
Yeah.
So that way it actually works better. So it's not just your insulin index has to be it is higher, but your satiation index is higher, so that works actually overall in a good weight loss kind of it's a good weight loss food.
Good, yeah.
I think we covered meditation and sleep, learning how to cook.
Mhm.
We covered natural suppressant, and I think other thing is of, I think we kind of touched based on is like eat real whole foods and not the processed one,
Yeah.
and that's actually very common. I mean, common sense knowledge, and especially I like to do is that sometimes it's not easy for me to always eat like whole meals because we all are working, we all are busy, so sometimes we are reaching out for that cookie which you really need at some times, and there's nothing wrong with that. So what I like to do at times is also have like a cleansing or a fasting ritual. So whatever it works for you, maybe once a month, be very light on And there are many ways of fasting. There's not just one. Like, figure out the one that works for you. So it's kind of routine cleansing and routine practice of bringing your hormones in balance as well. So you don't always have to be 100% if like a great healthy eater. Sometimes you can have these practices to manage your weight well, and it won't go out of the bound in that regards. So that's basically my number 4th. And number 5th is I would say like mindful eating. And I believe that is the reason most of the diet works, because when people follow a diet for the beginning, they are mindfully eating. They are like always making sure they're eating exactly the food that they want. They are well prepared. They're chewing their food also well, because they have taken time to prepare this. And so they are actually being more of a kind of mindful eater, which is okay to do for a short term, good for the short term weight loss. And over time, if you just develop the habit of reading ingredients anytime that you buy something, and just being intuitive eater, like, eat when you are hungry and always choose on an average the right food, that actually works great for the weight loss. At least it would not let you gain the weight unnecessarily.
And you said something very interesting about water, like, so when we have an appetite, drinking water, not to suppress your hunger, but just to, because like you explained, that sometimes it's just that body is dehydrated and that's what it's asking for. And instead, if we start snacking and, doing that, it just doesn't serve any purpose. So that was really a good point. So I think having water with you at all times and drinking when you, feel in between, a bit peckish in between, just to, think whether it's see whether it's just the dehydration, or do we actually feel the need to eat anything. So those have been really, really good tips, Rachna. Like, it's been learned so much today. I mean, there's some so very simple things, and we say the cliched topics, but it's like, only when you understand the logic behind it, and why is it that it's said what it's said about something, that you actually understand. Of course, there's science behind it, which you very clearly explain. So I think everybody will very much appreciate this. Thank you so much for taking the time out. And it's great to hear from you, like from an expert, about all these things. And I think this is something, and these are some things that that don't even take that much of an effort, or a lot of work to actually implement them into our lifestyle. So thank you very much, Rachna. Like always, super, super helpful and insightful. And we'll be back in touch with more questions if I have. But again, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Jags, and I appreciate you also taking time to interview and actually relying on me for this information.
No, of course. I definitely value it so much. And, we've had great feedback on the previous one as well. And people actually texted me to say that, they found it really useful. So it's really, really appreciated. Thank you so much, Rachna.
Thank you, Jagjeet.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Speak soon.
See you soon. Bye.